The MacBook Air has been in dire need of a refresh. It's been about 4.5 years. The display simply showed its age. It had thick bezels, the internals were not good, everything needed to be revamped. And that's exactly what they did with this. This is the new MacBook Air. It's an expensive proposition, but you do get a Retina display, you get the premium MacBook quality, you can get it in 3 colors, and more importantly, they modernized the MacBook Air, but at a cost. This is a very expensive device, and for $100 more, you can get a 13-inch MacBook Pro. So which one do you buy? But we'll talk about that in a moment. Hey everybody, it's Andrew, and this is my unboxing and first look at the all-new MacBook Air for 2018. Coming up. Today's video is brought to you by 0 and 9, your one-stop shop for Windows 10 professional OEM keys, Microsoft Office keys, as well as Steam CD keys, and so much more. All the links below for more information and where you can get these great discounts, and also a special discount code for my viewers. Want to see more videos like this? Well, why not hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit that notification icon. This way you'll be alerted every time I post a new video. And don't forget to check me out on my social media, especially Twitter, because that's where I post all the latest updates. Now, the key things to know about the new 2018 MacBook Air is that it's got a refresh in many ways. It's got a Retina display, it's got upgraded internals, it has a different look in terms of the build and quality, but it retains that nostalgic feel of the MacBook Air, which should appeal to those who have been holding out for a new MacBook Air for the last few years. And whether or not they've accomplished that, well, that remains to be seen. But let's find out. But first, let's find out what you get inside the box. Let's open it up. Now, holding the MacBook Air for the first time, you realize this is thinner and lighter than its predecessor, a much needed change in terms of design. Gone is the MagSafe connector, in is the more modern standard USB-C, more in line with the other MacBooks. Now it has a 30-watt adapter. Again, it's USB-C. We'll talk more about charging times and battery life in the full review. Now you also get your MacBook Air documentation and also Space Gray stickers, so a lot of people will be happy with that. Now I decided to go with the Space Gray, but there are 2 other colors. There's a new gold color as well as silver. But again, I went with Space Gray because that's how I roll. And I also like the fact that this is the first MacBook to be made of 100% recycled aluminum. That's pretty good. Well, they've modernized a lot of things, and unfortunately they've also modernized the ports by taking away some of the ones we really want. You only get 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports, and they're located on the left side. Fortunately, you still have a 3.5mm headset jack. Thank God they kept that on. Gone is the MagSafe connector, gone is the full-size USB-A port, and gone is the SD card slot. I'm not happy about that. But unfortunately, these are the times we live in right now. But there was a definite need for a refresh with that display. Gone are the thick bezels. Gone is the low resolution display. In comes a beautiful Retina display that is simply beautiful. I have to say Apple did a good job on it, although I do have one nitpick. It's not the brightest display I've ever seen. Certainly the MacBook Pros get a lot brighter, so I wish this was a little bit brighter, but comparing it to what came before this is a definite improvement. You get some pretty deep blacks, you get some vibrant colors. I think Apple did a good job in terms of the color reproduction on this. I'm going to do full testing on this, so stay tuned in my full review. You will get those numbers. But suffice it to say, this is a definite improvement over the previous MacBook Air, that's for sure. Now, one of the things that made the MacBook Air from previous generations so popular was its keyboard. It was comfortable to type on, it had good tactile feedback, and it was just a great typing experience. But unfortunately, Apple decided to put its butterfly keyboard on this new MacBook Air, much to the chagrin to many. Now, I'm actually used to it by now. I have a 2016 MacBook Pro I do most of my video editing on, so I'm actually used to this butterfly keyboard. Now, this is a definite improvement over that 2016 MacBook Pro. It's a lot less noisy. It has a little bit better key travel, but not much. But again, I prefer the old MacBook Air style keyboard. Unfortunately, they went with this new butterfly keyboard. Now, as far as the touchpad is concerned, it's a typical Apple touchpad. It's oversized. It's actually really responsive. 2-finger scrolling is a pleasure. All your gestures seems to work well. I have no real complaints. It's a typical Apple touchpad, and that's usually pretty good. Now, what you're looking at here is two very good things. Number one, there's no touch bar. So that to me is an addition by subtraction. And number two, the excellent Touch ID is present on this device. So this is the first MacBook that gives you Touch ID without the infamous touch bar. And that's a good thing. Now, setup was really easy on the Touch ID. It's great for Apple Pay. I love having that ability on my Mac to make purchases without having to type in my password every time. That's great. And it's also great for logging in. Love to have Touch ID on this MacBook, and I'm glad that touch bar is not here. Instead, you get physical buttons. Amen, brother. Now, you're able to have the Touch ID because it's using Apple's own T2 chip. Now, this silicone will allow it to control not only the Touch ID, Hey Siri, but also controls the SSD. And this is an ARM processor independent from Intel's processor, so that frees up Intel's processor to do other things, and that's pretty good. Well, so far so good, right? All these improvements and everything. Well, you're probably wondering, well, there has to be a hitch here. What the hell is going on with performance? Well, let's talk about it. Now, it's running the Intel Core i5-8210Y chip. Now, Intel made this chip specifically for Apple. It's a 7-watt chip, and here's how it did on the Geekbench 4 single-core and multi-core scores, and as you can see, they're not bad. Now, the built-in graphics are the Intel UHD Graphics 617. That's a chip I haven't seen before, and here's how it did on the OpenCL score. Not bad. And when I ran Cinebench on the OpenGL, it did 31 frames per second. Its CPU did 238 CBs. Now, these scores aren't too bad, but let's be clear, you're not going to be running any AAA titles on full settings anytime soon. But having said that, you can probably do about 90% of what you can do on, say, a MacBook Pro, multiple tabs open in Chrome. You can do all your Photoshop, everything pretty much without any issues, without any too many hiccups. But when you try to do 4K rendering in Final Cut Pro, you're going to run into some issues, of course. Now, of course, this has two Thunderbolt 3 ports, so theoretically you can connect an external GPU to get extra graphics horsepower. That's maybe something we'll do in a future video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Now, performance will certainly be aided by a fast SSD, so here when I ran the Blackmagic disk speed test, it did 1871 on the read and a 522.9 on the write. It's actually okay. The reads were very good, the writes were okay, not the best I've ever seen, but certainly not the worst. Again, decent reads and writes on the SSD. Now, on the left is the 2018 MacBook Air. On the right is its predecessor. As you can see, what a difference a few years makes. You can see the small fan on the MacBook Air, as you can see there. That certainly helps with the thermals. As far as upgradability is concerned, there's not much you can do. Everything pretty much is soldered onto the motherboard. Now, the new MacBook Air also has a smaller battery capacity. It's a 49.9 watt hours as opposed to the 54 watt hours of the previous generation. And in the 3 or so days I've been using this, you're looking at around 9.5 hours of mixed use, and that's pretty good so far. So this is the front-facing camera on the new 2018 MacBook Air. It's not very good. It's a bit grainy. The lighting in this room is not the greatest, but still should do better than this. This is a little bit disappointing, but I'm not surprised. Apple has done this in the past, especially with the 12-inch MacBook. This seems to be a continuation of that negative trend. But I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comment section below. Well, you're probably wondering, well, how's the sound on this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Well, it's actually pretty good. Apple's been making some great speakers, starting with the MacBook line, MacBook Pro, and now the MacBook Air. This is no exception. It's got some really good bass, gets pretty loud. I have to say, this is really good audio coming from the speakers. Now, let's hear it in action to see exactly just how it sounds. Okay, so here's my biggest problem with the 2018 MacBook Air. Its starting price of $1199 US is $200 more than the starting price of its predecessor. That's the first big problem I see. And second, for only $100 more, you can get a 13-inch MacBook Pro with a traditional Core U processor, which will give you more processing power than the Core Y chip that you find in the MacBook Air for 2018. But there are those that have been holding out for MacBook Air. They want a thinner and lighter device than the MacBook Pro, but really, how much thinner and lighter is it? And for $100 more, you're getting so much more processing power. In my opinion, it's the 13-inch MacBook Pro is the one that you should get. Now, of course, you don't get the Touch ID with that model as you would with the MacBook Air. So that's another thing you need to keep in mind. So these are some of the decisions you're going to have to make to see if this 2018 MacBook Air is really worth your money. I want to do my full testing and come to a conclusion about it. But really, these are the questions we need to be asking ourselves with regards to this new 2018 MacBook Air. So what do you think about this MacBook Air, new for 2018? This is the refresh many people have wanted. Unfortunately, it's coming in at a very expensive price. You're paying a premium for this. Of course, you're getting that premium build and quality we've come to expect with the MacBook line. This is no exception. Now, you do get a Retina display, although it's not the brightest display, so that's something to be concerned with. And also, you're getting very few ports. You're only getting the 2 Thunderbolt 3 ports you see here. Again, more in line with what you're seeing in the MacBook Pro line. Although the 15-inch, you get 4 USB Thunderbolt 3 ports. Here, you're only getting 2. Now, I'm happy that they did not put a touch bar on this, but I am very happy that they did put the Touch ID. I'm a big fan of that. Works really great. But the price is the big problem with this device. I can tell you this right off the bat without even doing a full review. For $100 more, you can get a 13-inch MacBook Pro. I was a little bit disappointed that they went with the Y processor as opposed to the more traditional U processors that you find in the older portables. Again, performance is not going to be great on this compared to, say, a MacBook Pro. So, very interesting device. I'm going to put it through its paces for the next week or so and come back with my full review. Again, very expensive proposition, but I think Apple needed this refresh. A lot of people were clamoring for it, and they've obviously delivered this product. Let's find out if it's actually worth your money, so stay tuned for that full review. So please hit the like button, please subscribe, please share this video. Don't forget to leave a comment in that comment section below. Let me know how I'm doing. Let me know if there's a device or something out there you think I should review. I'll do my best to try to make that happen. Don't forget to check me out on Facebook, on Twitter, Instagram, and of course my website, amdtechreviews.com. So until next time, this is Andrew from AMD Tech. See ya.